The taxi pulled to a stop at the foot of a dimly lit street. Sarah hesitated before stepping out, her mind racing with thoughts of what awaited her inside. The city was alive with noise, car horns, distant shouts, the faint hum of life continuing around her, but to Sarah, it all felt miles away. All she could hear was the hammering of her own heart. She stood there for a moment, her breath hanging in the cool evening air. The house she once called home loomed in front of her, dark and uninviting. A single flicker of light from the upstairs window told her he was still awake. And waiting. With shaky hands, she checked her phone one last time. 0 messages. Her stomach twisted in knots. Could she really do this? 6 months ago, everything had seemed perfect. Sarah and Michael were on top of the world. He, a rising tech entrepreneur, she, an art gallery curator. Their life together was everything she had ever dreamed of, until it wasn't. Until the loan she had kept hidden from him for so long came crashing down on them both. It started with the investment. Michael had convinced her it was the smartest way to grow their savings, to secure their future. She trusted him. But when the tech startup he invested in began to crumble, Sarah saw her dreams of a cozy future with Michael vanish into thin air. That's when she made her first mistake, borrowing money without telling him. Sarah thought she could handle it. A small loan, quickly repaid once the gallery picked up business again. But then the gallery struggled, and the bills mounted. Desperate, she turned to a loan app, a quick-fix solution she never thought would spiral into disaster. The loan was easy to get, but impossible to repay. Now, months later, with the debt multiplying and Michael suspicious of her every move, she had nowhere to turn. And tonight, she was about to face the truth head-on. She had to tell him everything. She took a deep breath, steeling herself before opening the door. Inside, the silence was thick. Michael sat at the dining table, his laptop glowing in front of him, but his eyes were fixed on her. "You're late," he said, his voice cold. Sarah swallowed hard. "Michael, we need to talk." His gaze didn't shift. "Is this about the money?" Her heart sank. "You know. I've been looking at the account for weeks, Sarah. I don't know where the money's going, but I'm about done with the excuses." Sarah opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. Instead, she handed him her phone. On the screen was the debt tracker from the loan app, the total figure displayed at the top. Michael's eyes widened as he scrolled through it. "What the hell, Sarah?" His voice was a mixture of disbelief and anger. "How much is this? How long has this been going on?" Tears blurred her vision. "I thought I could fix it before you found out. I was trying to make things right." "Make things right?" Michael's voice grew louder. "You've been lying to me. Borrowing money from some shady app. What were you thinking?" "I didn't know what else to do," she cried, the words finally spilling out. "I was scared we'd lose everything. The gallery, everything was falling apart." Michael stood up, pacing the room, running his hands through his hair. "Sarah, this isn't just about the money. It's the lying, the secrets. I don't even know who you are anymore." Sarah felt the weight of his words sink into her chest. "I'm sorry, Michael. I should have told you. But I need your help now. Please." He stopped pacing and stared at her, his face unreadable. For a moment, the silence hung between them like a heavy fog. "I don't know if I can help you," Michael said, his voice barely a whisper. "Not after this." Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. Everything she had feared, everything she had tried to prevent, was now happening right in front of her. And she had no idea how to stop it. "I can pay it back," she said, her voice trembling. "I just need time." Michael shook his head. "You don't get it, do you? It's not just about the money anymore, Sarah. It's about trust. He walked past her, grabbing his keys from the counter. I need some air. Before she could say anything else, the door slammed shut behind him, leaving Sarah alone in the dark, staring at the screen of her phone, at the death that had become her prison. The sound of the door slamming echoed in Sarah's mind long after Michael had left. She sat frozen in the silence, her eyes locked on the loan app's unforgiving numbers. How had it come to this? She had thought she could handle everything on her own, that the problem would go away if she just worked a little harder, borrowed a little more time. But now it was too late. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of a trance. The message on the screen was from the loan company. Final warning, pay the remaining balance in 48 hours or face legal action. Sarah's blood ran cold. 48 hours. She had barely enough to cover her rent, let alone the towering loan. Panic gripped her as she frantically dialed Michael's number, but it went straight to voicemail. She dropped the phone onto the couch, her hands shaking. The walls of the apartment seemed to close in around her, suffocating her with the weight of her decisions. Her mind raced, desperately trying to find a way out. There had to be something she hadn't thought of, some solution that could save her. And then it hit her. Nathan had been her friend since college, a successful investor who had always been a step ahead in the world of finance. They hadn't spoken much since she and Michael had gotten serious, but if anyone could help her now, it was Nathan. He had always offered to lend a hand if she ever needed it. Without hesitation, Sarah grabbed her phone again and scrolled through her contacts. It had been months since she'd reached out, but she didn't care. This was her last shot. She hit dial. Nathan. It's Sarah. The cafe was nearly empty when Sarah arrived the next morning, her nerves already frayed from a sleepless night. Nathan was sitting in the corner booth, his usual confident smirk in place as she slid into the seat across from him. Sarah, it's been ages, he said, leaning back with a grin. What's going on? She took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice steady. I need your help, Nathan. I'm in trouble. His expression shifted slightly, curiosity piqued. What kind of trouble? Sarah hesitated for a moment, unsure how much to reveal. But there was no point in hiding it now. I took out a loan. A big one. And I need to pay it back in 2 days, or they are going to come after me. Nathan's eyebrows shot up. How much are we talking about? Well, I can help you, but you know how it is, Sarah. Nothing's free. You'll have to pay me back, on my terms. Her heart sank. What do you mean? He smiled, but there was something predatory in his eyes. Let's just say the interest rate won't be as friendly as what you got from that app. But I can make your problem disappear. Sarah stared at him, the weight of his words settling in. She knew Nathan wasn't offering charity. If she accepted his help, she'd be trading one debt for another, possibly worse. What's the catch? She asked cautiously. Nathan shrugged. No catch. Just business. I clear your loan, you owe me. And you pay me back when I say. Simple. The room felt colder all of a sudden. She had known Nathan for years, but this side of him was unfamiliar. Ruthless. Calculating. And if I can't pay you back? Sarah pressed, her voice shaky. His smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Hours later, Sarah sat alone in her apartment, her mind spinning. Nathan had given her a way out, but at what cost? She could be free of the loan by tomorrow, but it would mean being tied to him indefinitely. A shadow passed over her, the sinking realization that no matter what she did, she would never truly escape this debt. It would just change hands. Her phone buzzed again, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Michael. I'm coming home soon, *. The words were simple, but they sent a fresh wave of anxiety through her. What was she going to tell him? That she was about to make another deal with the devil to cover up her first mistake. She paced the room, weighing her options. If she told Michael everything, he might leave for good. But if she didn't, there was no telling what Nathan would do if she defaulted on his terms. Sarah's mind whirled with fear and indecision until a knock on the door startled her. She opened it to find Michael standing there, his face hardened with frustration. "We need to settle this," he said, stepping inside. "No more lies." She took a deep breath, knowing there was no turning back now. Sarah stood frozen, her back pressed against the door as Michael walked past her into the living room. His jaw was tight, and his eyes betrayed a mixture of anger and exhaustion. She could see the weight of everything pressing down on him, just as it was crushing her. "Sarah, we can't keep doing this," Michael said, his voice low but firm. "You've lied to me about the loan, and I'm trying to figure out why. Why didn't you just tell me?" "I didn't want to lose you," Sarah whispered, the words catching in her throat. "I thought I could fix it before it got this bad." Michael shook his head, pacing again. "You don't get it. You didn't give me a choice. You made this decision on your own, and now we're both stuck dealing with the consequences." Sarah felt tears welling up but blinked them back. "I know I messed up, Michael. I was trying to protect you." Michael stopped pacing and turned to face her, his expression hardening. "Protect me? Sarah, you've put us in an even bigger mess. And now we are running out of time." She felt her chest tighten as she recalled Nathan's offer. I have a way out." Michael's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Sarah swallowed hard, her palms sweating. "I reached out to someone I know. An old friend, Nathan. He said he could help clear the debt, but I'd have to pay him back, on his terms." Michael's face darkened. "Nathan? The investment guy from your college days?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. He said he could cover the loan." Michael stared at her, disbelief washing over him. "So you're going from one bad loan to another? Sarah, you're trading one problem for a worse one. Don't you see that? I don't have a choice." Sarah's voice cracked, her emotions spilling over. "If I don't do this, they'll come after me. Legally. I'll lose everything." Michael's fist clenched at his sides as he took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "What exactly does Nathan want from you?" Sarah looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "He didn't say, exactly. Just that the terms wouldn't be easy." "Easy?" Michael's voice rose. "Sarah, he's playing you. This is how people like him operate. They offer help with one hand and ruin you with the other." Tears spilled over as Sarah buried her face in her hands. "I don't know what to do." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The room was thick with tension, the weight of her decisions hanging over them like a dark cloud. Then Michael took a step closer to her. "I can't fix this for you, Sarah," he said quietly. "But I'm not going to let you fall into another trap. You're not going to take Nathan's offer." She looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "Then what am I supposed to do?" Michael hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he considered something. "There's one way out. But you're not going to like it." "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to go to the police," Michael said, his tone deadly serious. "Tell them about the loan company. If they're as shady as they seem, they might be operating illegally. It could buy you some time, maybe even get the debt wiped clean." Sarah's eyes widened. "The police? But what if they don't believe me? What if the company finds out?" Michael crossed his arms. "If you don't do something now, they'll find out anyway when they take you to court. This is your best shot at getting out of this without being trapped by Nathan's terms. Her mind raced, the idea terrifying her. Going to the police meant exposing everything, her debt, her lies, her mistakes. But what choice did she have? The clock was ticking, and she was running out of options. You don't have to do this alone, Michael added, his voice softening. We can go together. Sarah looked at him, feeling a flicker of hope in the midst of her panic. You do that. Michael sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I'm angry, Sarah. But I still care about you. If we are going to get through this, we need to do it together. For the first time in days, Sarah felt a glimmer of relief. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay. I'll go. We'll go. Michael gave a small nod of approval. Good. We'll figure this out. But you need to cut ties with Nathan. No more loans. No more quick fixes. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words settle in. I will. The next morning, Sarah and Michael sat in the waiting room of the police station, her heart pounding with every passing minute. She had rehearsed what she would say over and over in her head, but now that she was here, it felt too real. Too risky. What if this doesn't work? She whispered to Michael, who sat beside her, tapping his foot impatiently. He glanced at her, his expression tense but determined. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Just be honest with them. Before Sarah could respond, a door opened, and a stern-looking officer beckoned them inside. Her stomach lurched as they followed him into a small, dimly lit office. The officer sat behind a desk, motioning for them to take a seat. So, the officer began, his voice gruff. What brings you here today? Sarah exchanged a nervous glance with Michael before taking a deep breath. I'm in debt. A loan company is threatening me with legal action, and I think they might be operating illegally. The officer's eyes narrowed as he leaned forward. Go on. Sarah recounted the whole story, how she had borrowed the money, the outrageous interest rates, and the threats that had followed. As she spoke, the officer took notes, his expression growing more serious with each detail. When she finished, there was a long pause. The officer tapped his pen against the desk, deep in thought. You're right to come here, he said finally. We've been investigating some loan companies like this for a while. If they're using predatory tactics, we'll get to the bottom of it. But I have to warn you, this won't be quick. It could take weeks, maybe months, before we can shut them down. Sarah's heart sank. But I don't have weeks. They're giving me 48 hours. The officer nodded. I understand. We'll do what we can, but you need to be prepared. They won't back off easily. As they left the station, Sarah felt the crushing weight of uncertainty return. The officer had given them a glimmer of hope, but it was fragile. There were no guarantees. And the clock was still ticking. Back at the apartment, Sarah collapsed onto the couch, her mind racing. Michael sat beside her, the tension between them still palpable. We did the right thing, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. I hope so, Sarah whispered, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. And as the hours slipped by, she couldn't help but wonder, what would Nathan do when he found out she had gone to the police? The next day, Sarah woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. She groggily reached for it, her pulse quickening as she saw Nathan's name flashing on the screen. Her throat tightened.
Watch out for part 2.